Supply chains aren't breaking because they're failing. They're breaking because they're being overwhelmed. Within hours. Not days. Gas stations empty. Pharmacy shelves strip. Shelves that looked full at 9 a.m. look like a war zone by 3 p.m. This isn't a shortage. This is a behavioral cascade. Millions of people realize at the same moment that something is wrong. And the moment that realization hits, the system that wasn't built for synchronized demand gets crushed under the weight of it. I've studied this data extensively. The pattern is clear and repeatable. The window between when something feels off and when the shelf becomes bare doesn't last days. In some categories, it closes in hours. 12 items close that window. Most cost under $20. All are available right now. But that availability changes the moment public concern crosses a threshold. At that moment, millions of people respond simultaneously. Here's what disappears first. And what you need to know about moving before everyone else does. Number 12, fuel. The operating system fails first. Fuel is the first thing that breaks visibly in any disruption. Not because fuel runs out. Because the local distribution system can't absorb synchronized demand. A storm gets named. Within hours, not days, gas stations have lines stretching into the street. Some run completely dry before nightfall. The fuel itself hasn't disappeared. Refineries kept running. Supply chains are functioning normally. What happened is much simpler. Millions of people decided to fill up at the same time. And that individual rational decision, made by millions at once, produces an irrational collective outcome.
I experienced this during a named storm. Storm warning came down around noon. By 2 p.m., I thought I had time. By 4 p.m., I realized I didn't. The lines wrapped around the gas station before I even arrived. 3 blocks. People with extra containers. People double-checking their fuel gauges. Everyone had the same thought at the same moment. By 6 p.m., the station had out-of-service signs. Not because they ran out of fuel in the ground. Because the pump distribution couldn't keep pace with the demand spike. I left without fuel. Drove on fumes to a station 20 miles away. That cost me 3 hours and $50 in extra gas. The fix is simple. Keep your tank above the halfway point. Not full at all times. Just never let it drop below half before refilling. That one habit removes you from the problem entirely. While others are spending 3 hours in line on day 2, you're already home. That distance between you and the crowd is the entire value of the preparation. If you woke up tomorrow and every station within 5 miles had a 2-hour wait, what would you do?
Number 11, Headlamp. Darkness and capability. When power fails, the first practical problem isn't food or water. It's darkness. And the way most people respond to darkness is the least functional option available. Most people grab a flashlight. Some light a candle. Both provide light. Both create problems the moment you try to actually do something. A flashlight occupies one hand. Every task in a power outage, finding supplies, preparing food, treating a wound, moving through the house, now gets done with one hand. Slower. More error-prone. More exhausting. Candles are worse. The light is stationary and dim. In a disrupted home with tired people nearby, an open flame is a compounding hazard. A headlamp solves both at once. The light tracks wherever you look. Both hands stay free. Brightness is adjustable. A quality LED headlamp runs 8 to 20 hours on a single battery set. I was living through a winter outage. 2 days in, the dark was starting to feel like the biggest problem. I grabbed a flashlight. Tried to find supplies in the basement while carrying it. One-handed. Everything was slower. More frustrating. I kept dropping things. My shoulder was exhausted just holding the light. Then I found an old headlamp in a drawer. Put it on. Everything changed immediately. Both hands free. I could move. I could actually do things. The psychological shift was real too. With a headlamp, the house felt less dark. Less threatening. More navigable. Third day of the outage, I ordered 2 more headlamps online before power came back. Cost about $30. Best $30 I've spent. For that price, you can move through a completely dark home with full capability. Without one, every other item on this list becomes harder to access and harder to use after dark. Keep at least 2. Know exactly where they are. Keep the batteries fresh. This is the item that makes everything else on this list actually usable when the lights go out.
Number 10. Manual can opener resource without access. Canned food is the most common thing people store. Beans. Vegetables. Soup. Fish. A reasonable foundation for any short-term supply. But every single can in that supply depends on one thing: the ability to open it. Electric can openers stop working the moment the power does. Improvising with a knife or forcing a can open by hand is slow, unreliable, and genuinely risky. A manual can opener costs under $10. And yet it's one of the most consistently absent items in households with substantial canned food. People build the pantry and forget the final step. The resource is there. The access to the resource isn't. Those aren't the same thing. A can you can't open is functionally identical to not having the food at all.
Number 9. Water filtration, the system you trust failing. Having water running through your taps is not the same as having safe water. Most people don't think about this because they've never had to. Municipal water treatment is reliable under normal conditions. That reliability becomes an assumption. And that assumption creates a blind spot. Water infrastructure across much of the United States is old. Aging pipes. Treatment facilities on aging equipment. Distribution systems designed decades ago. When those systems face stress, flooding, power failures at pumping stations, contamination from disrupted sources, the water that continues flowing may no longer be safe. Here's what makes this genuinely unsettling. Compromised tap water usually looks completely normal. Clear. No obvious smell. Visually identical to what you drink every day. You cannot assess safety by looking. You can only assess it by knowing the system that produced it is still intact. In a disruption, that knowledge disappears. We had a water main break in my area. 5 days. No water pressure. When pressure came back, the city issued a boil advisory. All water used for drinking, cooking, brushing teeth had to be boiled until the system was verified safe. My stove is electric. Power was out. I couldn't boil water if I wanted to. The requirement couldn't be met. I had bottled water for drinking. But for washing dishes, cleaning hands, basic hygiene, I was using potentially contaminated water. 5 days of that uncertainty is stressful. A friend gave me a portable water filter from a camping store. Gravity fed. Cost maybe $50. I ran tap water through it. Suddenly I had a backup option. A portable water filter is the independent option. No power. No fuel. No fire needed. Gravity-fed filters, pump filters, and filter straws can process water from taps or other sources, removing bacteria and many contaminants. The investment is small. The risk it addresses is real and documented and more common than most people realize.
Number 8. Medicine and first aid, small problems staying small. Most people frame medical preparedness around worst-case scenarios. Major injuries. Hospitalizations. Events that require real medical infrastructure. That framing is exactly why most households are unprepared for the situations actually likely. The real risk isn't dramatic. It's a fever at 11 p.m. when the pharmacy closed 2 hours ago. A child with an ear infection on day 2 of an outage. A wound from routine activity that needs cleaning immediately. Under normal conditions, these are minor inconveniences. Under disrupted conditions, stores crowded, shelves depleted, movement limited, the same situations compound quickly. A fever treated within a few hours is one uncomfortable evening. The same fever, unmedicated, extends across multiple days and affects the whole household. A clean cut dressed immediately heals without complications. Left unaddressed, it can become infected and more complicated to manage. Small problems resolved quickly stay small. The same problems handled late get larger.
My daughter had an ear infection on day 2 of an outage. Felt like the worst timing. I had pain relievers at home. Gave her some. Monitored it. By day 4, it started resolving. But I kept thinking about what would have happened without medication. 4 days of her in pain. 4 days of her uncomfortable and unable to sleep. Which means 4 days of the whole household suffering. The cascade effect. Over-the-counter analgesics and fever reducers are among the first products to move off pharmacy shelves when any public health concern escalates. That's not speculation. It's documented. I started keeping a basic supply after that. Pain relievers. Fever reducers. Antihistamines. Antiseptic. Gauze. Bandages. A thermometer. Cost maybe $30 total. What it gives you is the ability to handle your household's health on your own schedule, not one determined by what's happening outside. The difference in most cases is whether the right materials were within arm's reach.
Number 7, portable cooking method, food you can't use. There's a gap in how most people think about food preparedness. They focus on what food they have. They don't think about whether they can actually turn it into a meal. Those are two completely different things. The difference becomes concrete the moment the power fails. Most American kitchens run on electricity. Electric range. Microwave. Electric oven. When the grid goes down, so does every appliance. You might have pasta, rice, canned beans, and soup in the pantry. But without heat, most of that food is either unsafe or simply not palatable. You don't lack food. You lack the ability to use it. This has played out in real disruptions repeatedly. Winter storms. Hurricanes. Extended regional outages. The consistent account from people who live through them isn't we ran out of food. It's we had food we couldn't prepare. The solution takes up about one cabinet shelf and costs between $20 and $60. A portable butane or propane camping stove and a small supply of fuel canisters. That's it.
I had a well-stocked pantry. But during a winter storm, I realized I couldn't cook anything. Electric stove. No power. Suddenly all that rice and pasta became abstract. I borrowed a camping stove from a friend. Butane. Cost about $40. Went to the kitchen. Boiled water. Made rice. Made tea. Cooked soup. The psychological shift was immediate. A warm cooked meal during a disrupted situation isn't a luxury. It's a stabilizing signal that basic function is still intact. The household immediately felt less chaotic. I bought my own camping stove after that. Keep it with fuel canisters in a closet. Haven't had to use it again. But knowing it's there changes something. The stoves and canisters sell out quickly when an outage is anticipated. If a significant storm is forecast and you don't already own one, you may find empty shelves. 2 critical points. First, these stoves must only be used outdoors or in well-ventilated spaces. Carbon monoxide buildup from indoor use has caused deaths. This is a documented serious risk. Have the stove before you need it. Know how to use it safely.
Number 6, a lighter or matches, the single point failure. The camping stove is set up. The fuel canister is attached. The food is ready. And there's nothing to light it with. This is one of the most common single point failures in otherwise well-prepared households. Precisely because ignition sources feel so permanently available that no one actively maintains them. A lighter quietly runs out of fluid. A box of matches sits in a drawer for 2 years and the strike tips degrade. The one working lighter in the kitchen gets borrowed and not replaced. In a disruption, you reach for it and find nothing. The solution is simple and structural. Keep multiple ignition sources in deliberate, fixed locations. One near the stove. One in an emergency kit. One stored separately from both. Rotate them before they run dry. Check them on a regular schedule, the same way you check a smoke detector battery.
I had a camping stove. Had fuel canisters. Thought I was set. Then 3 days into an outage, I went to light the stove and reached for the lighter. It was gone. My roommate had borrowed it. Didn't replace it. I found 3 boxes of matches. All degraded. Wouldn't strike. Went outside looking for a lighter. Everything was closed. Borrowed one from a neighbor. But that moment of panic was real. Now I keep waterproof matches in 3 locations. A butane lighter near the stove. Another stored separately. Check them every 3 months. The cost is a few dollars. The failure mode when it hits is immediate and complete. Without ignition, your cooking method becomes useless. Everything cascades from that one missing item. There's a category of items so assumed to be present that they're never actively maintained. That untested assumption is where the gap opens. Silently. Invisibly. Until the moment you need it and discover it isn't there. Close it.
Number 5, toilet paper, the behavioral cascade. If you watched what happened in early 2020, this one doesn't need much setup. Toilet paper became the most documented example of a supply chain overwhelmed. Not by production failure. By behavioral cascade. Manufacturing was running. Trucks were moving. Distribution was functioning normally. The problem was demand. Millions of households decided to stock up in the same compressed window. The retail replenishment system isn't designed to absorb that kind of synchronized spike. It's calibrated for steady, predictable daily consumption. When that pattern breaks suddenly, the restock cycle can't keep pace. The gap between an empty shelf and a restocked one gets measured in days, not hours. And the image of an empty shelf spreads faster than any news headline and accelerates panic in surrounding areas before they've even experienced a shortage. This isn't specific to toilet paper. A whole category of everyday essentials, high turnover, low per unit value, assumed to always be there, behaves this way.
I remember 2020. Watched the panic unfold in real time. Didn't think about it much at first. Then I went to the store. Every shelf was bare. Not just toilet paper. Paper towels. Tissues. Cleaning supplies. Everything with the same profile. Cheap. Essential. Always available. Except it wasn't available. And the panic I saw on people's faces was real. Not because toilet paper is critical to survival. Because losing control of something you thought was guaranteed feels destabilizing. That experience changed how I prepare. Not dramatically. But methodically. When I shop, I grab an extra pack. Not hoarding. Just one extra. Before the moment when everyone else thinks to. By the time most people think, I should grab an extra pack, the window has already closed. You're not acting ahead of the crowd. You are the crowd. A few extra packages bought on a normal shopping trip before any signal of disruption. That's the entire strategy. The lesson isn't about this product. It's about recognizing which everyday items behave this way and choosing to act before the moment when everyone else thinks to.
Number 4, salt and seasonings, psychological sustainability. Disruption doesn't just challenge physical survival. It challenges psychological sustainability. And those two things erode through completely different mechanisms. Day 1, the food is adequate. Things feel manageable. Day 2, the food tastes flat. Nothing alarming. You eat without much thought. By day 3 or 4, something measurable has shifted. Not in physical health. In the willingness to eat. Appetite weakens. Meals stop feeling like meals. Caloric intake quietly drops below what the situation demands. Energy and cognitive function follow. This isn't pickiness. It reflects a documented pattern in extended disruption scenarios. Appetite regulation depends on sensory variety. Flavor. Aroma. The basic experience of food that tastes like something. Remove those consistently, and the appetite signal degrades. That degradation has real downstream consequences for physical and cognitive performance. Salt is the baseline. Without it, food doesn't just taste bland. It tastes wrong in a way that progressively undermines the willingness to eat.
I went through a week-long outage. Had food. Rice. Beans. Canned soup. All unseasoned. First day, it was fine. Second day, it started tasting monotonous. By day 3, I couldn't bring myself to eat. I had calories available. My body refused them. The food tasted flat in a way that made it feel unreal. Then I found a salt shaker. Added it to the rice. Changed everything. Suddenly the rice tasted like food. Not just salt. But salt reminded the rice that it was supposed to taste like something. I added it to everything after that. Made it edible. Made it something I could consume consistently. Basic dried seasonings, pepper, garlic powder, dried herbs, restore enough sensory variety to keep appetite stable across consecutive days in a way that unseasoned food simply can't match. Cheap. Lightweight. Shelf-stable. Takes up almost no space. And among the first things to disappear in disruptions, not because anyone prioritizes them, but because everyone realizes their necessity at the same moment. Buy them before that moment arrives. The cost is almost nothing. The return is the psychological sustainability of your entire food supply.
Number 3, batteries, the silent failure. Your headlamp doesn't work without them. Your emergency flashlight doesn't work without them. Your battery-powered radio, the most reliable source of official information when the grid is down, doesn't work without them. Batteries have a specific failure mode that separates them from most items on this list. They don't signal that they're running low. A device can appear completely functional right up until the moment it stops working. You won't know the batteries are near depletion until you turn it on in the dark and nothing happens. That discovery, in the moment you most need the device, is the failure mode. Under normal conditions, you replace batteries when you think of it. It feels like something you can always do. Until the moment that assumption breaks. Stores are closed. Local stock is gone. You simply can't leave. And you find that the flashlight is dead. The thermometer won't turn on. The radio is silent.
I was in the middle of a 3-day outage. Power out. Wanted to check the battery-powered radio for updates. Grabbed it. Pressed the button. Nothing. Dead. Checked the flashlight. Same. Headlamp. Same. Every battery-powered device in my house was dead. Went to the store to buy new batteries. Shelves were empty. Completely cleared. Other people had the same thought at the same moment. Demand spike exceeded supply. Couldn't find batteries anywhere. Ended up calling a friend to drive 20 miles away to find some. The consistent pattern across documented disruption events, batteries are among the first items to sell out. Not because manufacturing stops. Because demand spikes from multiple directions simultaneously. Every household reaching for a flashlight, a radio, a backup device, all at the same moment. By the time most people think to buy batteries, the shelves are already cleared. I now stock a dedicated supply. Keep them in a drawer. Check them twice a year. Make sure they're current. When I use them, I replace them immediately. Rechargeable batteries are practical for routine use. For emergency purposes specifically, keep a dedicated supply of fresh disposables. Ones that don't require grid access to charge. The investment is minimal. The failure mode is immediate, entirely preventable, and completely within your control to avoid.
Number 2, backup power source, the countdown begins. A power outage doesn't feel serious in the first 15 minutes. You assume it'll resolve. You wait. By hour 3, something has quietly shifted. Your phone is at 28%. You've been conserving it. A few messages. A couple of news checks. But it's dropping faster than expected. The router went dark. You're burning through mobile data now. Every refresh costs battery you can't get back. The percentage stops feeling like a number. It starts feeling like a countdown. By hour 8, you're making decisions you didn't expect to make. Do I use the last charge to call someone? Do I even know what's happening outside? Can I coordinate anything from here? This is how a power outage becomes a loss of control. Not because of darkness, but because the systems that keep you informed, connected, and functional all depend on electricity. When they go down together, the outage stops being an inconvenience and becomes a genuine vulnerability. The goal of a backup power source isn't to recreate your normal setup. That's not realistic. The goal is narrower. Keep your phone charged. Maintain internet access where possible. Preserve basic lighting. Those 3 functions, communication, information, visibility, are enough to stay stable through most outage scenarios.
I experienced the countdown firsthand. Extended outage. 8 hours in, my phone was at 12%. I was rationing everything. Not using it. Just watching the percentage drop. The isolation was the worst part. Not the darkness. The disconnection. No way to contact people. No way to know what was happening. Phone was my only connection to information. Someone gave me a portable power bank. 10,000 mAh. Cost about $30. Charged my phone. Immediately, the counting stopped. I could use my phone normally again. Could check news. Could contact people. The psychological shift was immediate. The outage was still happening. But I wasn't isolated anymore. Portable power stations and high-capacity power banks handle this without any installation or expertise. A mid-range unit can charge a smartphone multiple times, run a small router, and power LED lighting for hours. But here's where most people silently fail this category. They buy the device. Put it in a drawer. 3 months later, when they actually need it, the battery is at 11% and the device is useless. A power source you haven't maintained isn't preparation. It's a false sense of preparation. And in some ways, that's worse than having nothing because it removes the urgency to find a real solution. Keep it charged. Keep it accessible. When you use it, prioritize clearly. Phone first. Internet second. Lighting third. Don't run it down on appliances that aren't keeping you connected and informed.
Number 1, fuel, what it actually controls. Fuel appeared at number 12. So why is it closing the list? Because every item covered between then and now shares one hidden dependency. And that dependency is fuel. Without it, you can't reach the pharmacy when medication runs out. You can't get to the store for a water filter or replacement batteries. You can't transport someone who needs help. You can't leave a situation that becomes unsafe. Fuel isn't just one item in a disruption. It's the item that determines whether you can respond to every other item on this list. A half-empty tank on the wrong day doesn't just stop your car. It stops your options. All of them. At once. That's the real weight of this category. Not the cost per gallon. Not the inconvenience of the line. The fact that every practical decision you might need to make, every other preparation on this list, runs through the assumption that you can move. When that assumption breaks, the rest breaks with it.
Fuel appeared at number 12. So why is it closing the list? Because every item covered between then and now shares one hidden dependency. And that dependency is fuel. Without it, you can't reach the pharmacy when medication runs out. You can't get to the store for a water filter or replacement batteries. You can't transport someone who needs help. You can't leave a situation that becomes unsafe. Fuel isn't just one item in a disruption. It's the item that determines whether you can respond to every other item on this list. A half-empty tank on the wrong day doesn't just stop your car. It stops your options. All of them. At once. That's the real weight of this category. Not the cost per gallon. Not the inconvenience of the line. The fact that every practical decision you might need to make, every other preparation on this list, runs through the assumption that you can move. When that assumption breaks, the rest breaks with it.
12 items. Most cost under $20. Every one available right now. Full stock. Normal prices. No lines. What determines whether they matter is timing. The gap between I should probably handle that and I can no longer handle that doesn't open because of dramatic events. It opens when a threshold of public concern is crossed. At that moment, millions of people respond simultaneously. Supply chains built for steady, distributed demand can't absorb synchronized pressure. They buckle. The window closes. The people who were already covered at that moment aren't the ones who moved fastest after the signal. They're the ones who were never in the same position as everyone else to begin with. They acted earlier. Not dramatically earlier. Just ahead of the moment when the crowd moved. Preparation isn't an ideology. It isn't a personality type. It's the straightforward recognition that the systems we depend on have real limits. That those limits surface at unpredictable moments. And that the window for low-cost, easy preparation is always before the event. Not during. 12 items. Most under $20. Every one available right now. The only question is whether you move before May 1st or whether you wait until the moment everyone else does. Which of these 12 do you already have? And which one surprised you most?